Hey, welcome on in, everybody. It's Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel here on this hollow heat season eve as your Miami Heat are getting set to open up the season against the Orlando Magic. It is Goosey's galore. Very excited for the season to get going here, ladies and gentlemen. Quite frankly, it has been too damn long. It has been too damn long. I cannot wait for this thing to get going. Excited, nervous, a little nervous. I feel like I'm a lot more optimistic, and this is just me by nature. You know, I was optimistic with the Dolphins too. How'd that work out? I'm just more optimistic by nature. You guys know me. Wild Heat Coyote. Meet. I was asked about my prediction today from Leroy Horde. He said, give me a number of wins. I went 46 for the Miami Heat. Maybe on the optimistic side, way on their over. You know, I know there's people who are afraid to put them at 500. I was like, really? I mean, they had, first of all, the fourth quarter collapses. All right, just on normalcy. Fourth quarter collapses, chaos being gone, Spo not having a rancid season. You know, I just feel like they're going to be a lot better than they were last year. Now, does that mean they're going to be actually good? Those are questions that remain to be seen. And you guys know I'm probably high as a kite on the Jović gas with how much I've pumped his tires going into this offseason, how much I watched Eurobasket. I'm excited to see him flourish this year. Kel'el Ware, I have been blown away by his preseason. I think he's looked really, really good, which is where we want to start off today because Kel'el Ware, not a great start to the fortune of the season. Kel'el Ware, it was reported that he was probable with the neck spasm, and then all of a sudden the Miami Heat announced that, he had an ankle sprain, so he is now questionable for the game against the Orlando Magic, which, great. You know, I don't know what the hell Erik Spoelstra's been doing in this training camp. There's part of me that likes it because it's that kind of like old school Miami Heat Hunger Games. They've practiced a lot in the lead up to this, and they've had a lot of games. So I do think this team, though the bits and pieces have been in and out and not all of the preseason games, they have practiced a lot together. The only guy who's been seriously injured for the most part this past week has been Kasparas Jakuponis and Tyler Herro. The Kel'el thing, he was out yesterday, then he was back today, and was he back today? I don't know. Did he practice today? I think he did practice today, and that's where he hurt the ankle. But yesterday he didn't practice. And so I was like, that's not great. But it said that he was going to be good to go today. And so I was like, all right, cool. Excited. What are we going to see in this lineup? And I was kind of curious. I was like, all right, well, where is the place today? He did practice because he sprained the ankle at practice. Okay. But, like, where were the Heat going to go with their starting lineup? My question. Now, me personally, I still think that if Jović was healthy, I think that Spo was still going to go the road of Bam, Nico, and then I figured the rest is going to be Wiggins, Mitchell, Powell. I don't think Drew Smith is starting. I think that was just we're bringing Mitchell along slowly. And, you know, I just think that if the identity of the team is to play fast, the guy who fits the most into that is Nico. And I just think that's kind of what the plan has been all along. And then you see how Kel'el Ware plays with that burst in his minutes. And the other thing is Nico's kind of the connector extraordinaire for both Bam and Ware. And I feel like we saw the chemistry that he had with Kel'el last year. Tall time? And I think that he's kind of the fire of that. Now, Bam and Ware got a little bit of time together. I don't think that's going to be wrong, but we heard Spo, he was talking about, hey, we got to get that down to where they're not in the same space. And so that's still, I think, a work in progress. But I do ultimately think even if he is going to play, hopefully he plays. This is definitely a matchup where you want Kel'el Ware. You know, even when I was asking Nico about this at Media Day, about the three big lineup, like let's say the Heat wanted to do a Houston Rockets. I don't know if you guys have seen the Houston Rockets lineup that's going tonight, but it's Amen Thompson, then it's 4-6-11 dudes. You got Jabari Smith, Kevin Durant, Şengün, Steven Adams. So they're going big. And I was like, well, is there a version of the Heat that could go Powell, Wiggins with the three bigs? And it's a couple things. Like, one, you don't really have the stagger in there, so like you're gonna have some weird substitutions. And then Nico was like a little questioning on the spacing of that. Like, how's that going to work? And that's a question of Bam and Kel'el. And that, I think, there's going to be an interesting question this year: is how do those two work together? I think that Bam wants that very much to work, because I think that he doesn't necessarily want to be a pure center anymore. He can throw in there and be in the mold and all that type of stuff. But I do think ideally he wants one of these guys to work out to be his front court mate. And I just think that if the identity is to play fast, to flow, you don't necessarily have a true point guard with this lineup. Nico is almost a bit of a hybrid like that. Like, he can get guys involved. He's great on the break. He's great at looking for guys. He's great at looking for shooters. He's a good lob thrower. Just unselfish by nature. I just think that play, that, mind you, this does not mean I don't want Kel'el Ware to play a bunch. I want Kel'el Ware to play a bunch. I want him to be impactful. I feel like Mario Cristobal. Tough. I will say, though, that video today that the Heat put out of Spo with Kel'el Ware, that was Goosey's galore, dude. I was like, yes. He's like, what's your battery on? He goes, 100. He goes, let's keep it on 100. I was like, yes, let's keep it on 100. Then, of course, it sprung to 50 because his ankle got hurt. I don't think that video was from today that the Heat put out, but it was still good. Look, the Gooseys are not to be trifled with. The Gooseys are the Gooseys. So we go into this season, and the other piece of news that happened over the last 48 hours, Tyler Herro, no deal. Officially, the Heat did not have a firm offer, according to reports, for Tyler Herro. Not a surprise. That was reported by Anthony and Windhorst over the weekend, but it just became officially official. No Tyler Herro deal, which, by the way, I think is fine. I think it's okay to be at a spot where you want to know something. When you have 2 years guaranteed left, I almost think the NBA is going to get more into this nature of, like, we're not just tacking on extensions willy-nilly, and especially if there are durability questions. I think the Heat we know that Pat Riley really likes Tyler Herro. Okay, this is not a surprise. We know Pat Riley is a big fan of Tyler Herro. Okay, I just think that the organization has a big pivot year, because, like, look, if I am wrong and this year does go to hell, and there are reasons it can go to hell. Like, I'm not naive to know the things that aren't out there. I'm not naive to say, hey, if Nico's not durable enough, or if all of Eurobasket was a mirage, or he's only a sixth man, then you're just like, all right. Then you're going to need Kel'el Ware to be like something crazy in his second year where the coach doesn't completely trust him. That's a big ask. And if Bam Adebayo is, continuing to slip in his offense, and he's being less efficient, and he's not going to get to the rim, and he isn't going to shoot with confidence, and he isn't going to be the aggressive force that the Heat need him to be, and it gets stagnant if he doesn't bring those extra flavors. But look, people will already say, and they'll bury that Bam's a finished product. I don't think that's the case. I still think that there's more that can be uncorked there. I think we saw that last year, especially in the second half. Mentality is a different thing. Can he carry the mantle of being the go-to guy? That's a different question. I think the skill set, the idea of Bam being a finished product, I don't think that. I think even in today's day and age, we could see players at 28 can still add things. We saw that last year with his three-point game. But can you get out of the mentality of being a sidekick? Can you get out of the mentality of being the setup guy for everybody? Can you get out of the mentality of, I'm here to make everybody else more comfortable? And if you do take that mentality, can you be efficient with it? Those are going to be fair questions with Bam Adebayo. And I can even say, as a guy who is an ardent Adebayo fan, love everything that he makes up with as a player and how he carries himself. Those are fair questions. And we got to find out. Can he lead a team without Jimmy Butler by his side? These are fair questions. No doubt about it. And if he doesn't, and he can't, then this Miami Heat team might stink. They might stink. Kendrick Perkins came out, and he said that he thinks Bam Adebayo is going to be off the Miami Heat. He made it seem like he thinks Bam will ask off because he thinks it's time for Bam to be on a contender, as if he wasn't on a contender 2 years ago. but that he made it seem like, well, Bam's not going to want to stick around that and he said that roster stinks. And we've heard all this. I think the main narrative I've heard a lot of the podcasts this week who have had the Heat, barely scraping over with it. I think most people think they're going to be better than they were last year. I don't think many people think they can make a 9-game leap like I do. And I think a lot of people look at the Heat and they say, well, Tyler Herro is going to miss maybe at least 15 games. Like that's and a very hard 15 games to start the season. That's going to put you behind the 8-ball. A couple things with that. One, I understand, and I don't think the Heat are necessarily in a place to get the benefit of the doubt other than Spo and just organizational respect. Somebody like Zach Lowe will give that out to them, but even he doesn't have them having a fantastic record. I think I saw Kevin O'Connor had them as the 3rd worst team in the East. That's a bit strong for me. Like, I'm sorry, dude. You as fun as the Hornets are, that's a heck of a leap you're willing to make. And the other thing is, I really go back to this Norman Powell thing, and I think it's crazy. And I talked about this a little bit today on the radio show, so excuse the double dip on it. But I keep looking at the Powell thing, and I'm like, I get that Norman Powell isn't the sexiest name on the planet. He's almost too perfect for the Miami Heat, that he's this under-the-radar, over 20 points a game guy, which I think only 2 top 25 scorers changed hands last year. He was one of them. And I really think that if Norman Powell and Desmond Bane switched and the Heat got Desmond Bane, even for nothing, and the Magic traded Norman Powell and gave up picks for him, let's just switch the names, but just switch the teams. I think everybody would be talking about him as the missing piece to Orlando, and that Desmond Bane was going to be all right for the Heat, but not that great. And I think that's because people are really high on Paolo. I get it. He's a moose and a monster. I think that they love Franz Wagner, even though he also can't shoot a lick. And they believe in Terrell Suggs, who is Jalen Suggs, excuse me, not T-Sizzle, Jalen Suggs. But, he's also got durability questions. He's a badass, don't get me wrong. But I do think that people are really penciling in the Magic already. And I'm like, all right, dude. I mean, it feels a little bit like Philadelphia with less baggage, but who am I to judge? Everybody seems to not be scared of their offensive issues with adding Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane's a good shooter, but he's never been a 1. He's not even been a 2. He's been a 3. And I just think that if you switch the roles, people would be like, oh my God, the Magic got Norman Powell, greatest shooter ever. Maybe that's my bias. But there's always these little podcast hipster teams everybody likes. Which is, look, I'm excited about this matchup. This team has a bunch of massive dudes. Goga Batadze gave Bam Adebayo some fits in games last year. I got very annoyed by it. Very annoyed by it. But I also think, these are good pros. Wiggins, Powell, being in the Heat spot. Davion Mitchell looked good for the Heat last year. I feel like we've barely talked about him this summer. And I just think I don't know. I think there's Spo's mentioned the depth. I don't think he wants to put any things on it, but I do think there is a lot of quality there. I don't think there's like the dude who can are we going to see get on a run? Can Tyler Herro do that this year, entering his prime when he gets back healthy? That'll be interesting. He did put himself on social media. He said on his YouTube page that he'd be back on the court on a week. Last night he posted on his Finsta that him time-stamped on the court. So that's good news. And yeah, I'm just very, very excited to finally get here. This has been a long summer. It's been an agonizing summer because, the Heat have just, this is a long gap, 2 years in a row with embarrassing first round exits, shrouded in controversy, a lot of their dirty laundry out there, the Jimmy Butler thing. I talked about that on the radio show. I don't want to double dip on that either. So you guys can go check out the YouTube page and talk about what I had to say about that. It didn't bother me so much. I'm just I just found it funny. I'm just he's got a playbook. He's got a playbook when it comes to this stuff. So, and I don't think I'm going to watch the Warriors. I'm not hate watching the Warriors this year, except when they come here, of course. I actually think the Warriors will be pretty decent. I'm curious to see what Jimmy is durability wise in the first half of a year, because that's typically when his injuries flare up. Takes a little bit. He's a little bit like a a motor that needs to run a little bit before he gets comfortable cruising. But I think Spo's going to have a bounce back year. And I like a lot of these young guys. I thought Jaquez, question if he's going to be able to keep going, but I thought that we saw some really good signs in the preseason. Larson, I think we all adore. The one big thing on this team is the shooting. Like, I think that is a hugely fair criticism because there's not really a go-to shooter on that bench. Like, if we were to start Nico, Bam, Wiggins, Mitchell, Powell, is like, no joke, like I guess Fontecchio, can get hot. But Keishad, and I'm not counting Tyler because he's hurt, but it's Ware, Jaquez, Larson, Drew Smith, Fontecchio, Rozier, Yakachonis, Keishad. Not a lot of downtown juice there, dude. Not a lot of downtown. And this is an odd thing. This has been a couple of years now where the Heat, you look at the two ways even with Myron Gardner, Jameer Young's got some things there, but I don't think he's kind of known as an all-around scorer. And Vlad Golden. And this is a couple of years in a row. Even the two-way guys. There's not a Strus, there's not a Robinson, there's not a Vincent. Maybe there's there's Vincent-esque stuff with Young, but I think that to me is a glaring hole. Like, has that been really replaced? The loss of Duncan Robinson or even Haywood Highsmith being able to get hot. Haywood would be good for like a 4 for 7 every now and then. So who are those guys on this team? When Tyler gets back, it'll get a little better, but even then, like you don't really have an igniter from downtown. I mean, like you could argue is like Rozier the best guy to do that, like and I don't think they're gonna play him. So man, I'm ready and raring for this thing to get going. But Kel'el Ware being hurt was the big news today, and not having him against the Magic is less than ideal, folks. It is not great. I don't know what Erik Spoelstra was doing at this camp. It went from training camp to boot camp real quick. Shout out to my guy Hot Take Herro, who's like, yeah, literally boot camp. You got people in walking boots after the, yeah, literally, like people are getting into walking boots after these camps. You've had Yakachonis with the groin, Jović with the back, and they're all young guys too. That's the other thing. So that to me tells me that this was a really hard training camp because it's all the really young guys who got banged up. Yakachonis, Ware, Nico, Rozier got hurt early. Pella was dealing with something that he had from Euros, and Davion's not young, but he's young. He's like right there in the prime. And so, but it is his first Heat camp. And I was like, damn, what the hell did Spo do at this camp where everybody's getting banged up right out of the gate? But I do think there's a conscious, look, if the Heat are going to run and they're really going to do this and they're not going to bullshit about it, right? Then you need an in-shape Miami Heat, old school Pat Riley conditioned physique team. If that's true that they're going to do that. We'll see. I think it was what Spo said in training camp. He goes, players say they want to run. This feels like he had a camp where he's like, no. Like, we don't know what happens in those practices, but it feels like he was at like, no, if you guys want to do this, we're going to do it. So I think that's an interesting thing that's happened. No, obviously nobody wants anybody hurt. Hopefully Kel'el will be able to, because if Kel'el can't go tomorrow and you got to start in lineup and then your backup big off the bench is Keshad Johnson and Fontecchio. I mean, that's like, you want to talk about Spo's wheelhouse. He's like, we have enough. We do. We have enough. Happy East season, everybody. Let's get this thing started.